there is one other peculiar fact about Oumuamua. Well, other than it was very shiny, that I didn't mention, we didn't detect any heat from it, and that implies that it's rather small and shiny. But the other peculiar fact is that it came from a very special frame of reference. So it's sort of like finding a car in a parking lot, in a public parking lot, that you can't really tell where it came from. So there is this frame of reference where you average over the motions of all the stars in the neighborhood of the sun. So you find the so-called local standard of rest of the galaxy, and that's a frame of reference that is obtained by averaging the random motions of all the stars, and the sun is moving relative to that frame at some speed. But this object was at rest in that frame, and only 1 in 500 stars is so much at rest in that frame. And that's why I was saying it's like a parking lot. It was parked there, and we bumped into it. So the relative speed between the solar system and this object is just because we are moving. It was sitting still. Now you ask yourself, why is it so unusual in that context?
Yes.
You know why? Because if it was expelled from another planetary system, most likely it will carry the speed of the host star that it came from.
Yes.
Because it was, the most loosely bound objects are in the periphery of the planetary system, and they move very slowly relative to the star, and so they carry when they are ripped apart from the planetary system, most of the objects will have the residual motion of the star, roughly, relative to the local star. But this one was at rest in the local. Now, one thing I can think of, if there is a grid of road posts, like for navigation system, so that you can find your way in the local frame, then that would be one possibility.
So these are like little sensors that's fascinating to think about. So there could be, not necessarily literally a grid, but just evenly, in some definition of evenly spread out set of objects like these that are just out there.
A lot of them. Another possibility is that these are relay stations, that for communication. You might think in order to communicate, you need a huge beacon, a very powerful beacon, but it's not true, because even on Earth, we have these relay stations, so you have a not so powerful beacon, so it can be heard only out to a limited distance, but then you relay the message, and it could be one of those. Now, after it collided with the solar system, of course, it got a kick, so it's just like a billiard ball, we gave it a kick by colliding with, but most of them are not colliding with stars, and so that's one possibility. Okay, and there should be lots of them if that's the case. The other possibility is that it's a probe, that was sent in the direction of the habitable region around the sun to find out if there is life. Now, it takes tens of thousands of years for such a probe to traverse the solar system from the outer edge of the Oort cloud all the way to where we are. And, it's a long journey. So when it started the journey from the edge of the solar system to get to us now, we were rather primitive back then. We still didn't have any technology. There was no reason to visit. There was grass around and so forth. But, maybe it is a probe.
So you said 10,000 years. That's fast. So it takes that long.
Tens of thousands, yes.
Tens of thousands of years.
Yeah. And the other thing I should say is, it could be just an outer layer of something else, like something that was ripped apart, like a surface of an instrument that was, and you can have lots of these pieces. If something breaks, lots of these pieces spread out like space junk, and that
it could be just space junk from an alien civilization.
Yes.